Hello, this is a prepaid collect call from
Dante.
An inmate at the Jackson Correctional Institution. All calls, other than properly placed attorney calls, may be monitored and recorded. To accept charges, press 1. To refuse charges, press 2.
If you would like to permanently block your number from receiving calls from this facility, press
6.
For balance and rate quotes, press
7. To accept charges, press 1. To refuse charges, press 2. Thank you for using
CenturyLink.
You may start the conversation now.
Welcome to the Incarcerate U.S. podcast. I'm your host, Dante Cottingham. This morning I'm speaking to Miss Azzurra Crispino. She is the co-founder of an organization called Prisoner Support, PAPS. Good morning, Miss Crispino.
Thank you so much for having me on, and good morning to you.
Well, thank you. You're welcome. I'd like to thank you for taking the time this morning.
It's a lovely day to abolish prisons.
Absolutely. I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask you to get your perspective on some of the components of mass incarceration in America. But before we get to those, let's talk a little bit about PAPS. What inspires you to co-found it, and what is its mission?
Well, our mission is to abolish prisons, and we do that by being a pen pal to prisoners organization. We also do peaceful street demonstrations. One of the things that you can find on our blog is a how to do a solitary confinement demonstration. So how to recreate the space of a solitary confinement cell and prepare postcards and other literature so that people who are then passing by write to a specific person who is being held in solitary confinement. But we also try to do advocacy work. But basically our approach is that the reason why we have prisons is because they function on the idea of out of sight and out of mind. And so anytime you can get somebody to write to a prisoner, that really brings you in to that environment and builds connection. And that connection is going to be really the primary way that we're going to overcome mass incarceration. And, if we save the post office along the way, that would be nice, too.
No doubt.
All calls, other than properly placed attorney calls, may be monitored and recorded.
Very interesting approach, very unique approach. And I've been locked up 20-some years, so over the years I've met a lot of people, and the people that I corresponded with definitely, that correspondence, that friendship, that definitely changed their perspective about prison. So that sounds like that could be a very effective method.
Well, thank you. And you had asked me personally how I got involved, and just very quickly, I became activated during the Occupy movement. I am a college ethics professor by trade, and I had always thought of myself as woke, right, even before woke existed as a term, in the classroom, but I hadn't taken it to the street. And then Occupy happened, and to me that was an international call, and so I answered. And after I watched 60 riot cops sweep us off the plaza, right, sweep us off our space in City Hall, I realized that I was really scared of becoming arrested. And as a pacifist, I'm supposed to, break the law openly, lovingly, and willingly and be able to accept my punishment. And I thought, well, if I'm scared of going to prison, then I'm not willing to accept my punishment. And here we are almost 6 years later, and I'm still afraid of going to prison, and I think everybody should be. But I feel like I handle that fear substantially better than I did 6 years ago. But that's how I started writing to people, was through the Occupy movement, wanting to support our prisoners. And then from there I started writing to people who had been held in long-term solitary confinement.
Hey, how would you describe like that? How would you describe that initial experience? Obviously you're still connected to incarceration issues, so I would assume that writing to people in prison had a transformative approach or a transformative effect on you.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know that I was this committed to prison abolition. I identify as an anarchist, so of course I think of any government institution as ultimately needing to go. The post office can be last. But I wasn't really vested in it, and it's funny because I wrote my master's thesis on drug policy. I had made all these pretty charts about how racist drug policy was and how that racism could not be justified But it wasn't until I started writing to prisoners who were on the inside for drug crimes that it became real to me that, oh my goodness, this is really a social evil that must be stopped immediately. So that's part of the reason that I push the connection piece so much, because I can't say that I wasn't educated on these issues. I was, right? I mean, I made charts and put them in a chapter. So, but at the time, I was just looking at it as a hoop to jump through in order to graduate. I wasn't looking at it as, oh my goodness, I have a moral responsibility to actively engage, to do something to resolve this issue.
Absolutely. You kind of once you get those, you get like like personal people's story. You get connected to them. It brings you real close to the issue, and it creates a degree of empathy that I don't think a lot of people would have otherwise. I think it's a great idea.
Hopefully it works.
Absolutely. So, is PAPS a national organization, or does it focus on a specific state or region?
We are national. We are small, so we tend to be more active in Texas, but we do support prisoners nationwide, and any prisoner can write to us regardless of crime or affiliation or undesirability, and we will post them on our social media, and we are hopefully going to be unveiling our new website very soon, and then we try to help them get pen pals. And we're very concerned about for-profit organizations that do the same thing. There's I won't mention them by name, but there's a company that you can pay $40. $40, right? That's a fortune for a prisoner to be listed on their website. We may not necessarily get you as many pen pals as they do, but we are working on it, and we're free. So any prisoner can write in, basically just putting an introduction letter. Some people think of it as a dating service, which, how do I put this politely? If you find the love of your life across the razor wire, more power to you. That's one way to build connection. But we're not necessarily a dating service.
Right. No doubt. So if somebody wanted to reach you, how could she be reached?
Sure. The easiest way is to write us 1321 Upland Drive, number 2395, Houston, Texas 77043. And that's our mailbox address. None of us are actually physically in Houston, but our centralized mailbox allows us to then forward the letters to individual pen pals. And if there are anybody who is listening who is interested in writing a prisoner but has not, either because they don't have an address, they're currently homeless, or they are concerned with their security and don't want to use their home address, have them please reach out to us because by becoming a member of PAPS, you can just use our address. And we have ways
And I'll be sure to put all of that contact information along with this podcast as well.
Great.
It's my understanding that PAPS is currently working with some prisoners who are on lockdown in Florida. What's going on over in Florida?
What is going on in Florida is insane. It's every single prisoner in the state of Florida is on lockdown. And that announcement was made on Thursday that and they're basically doing it preemptively because they're concerned, I guess, over prisoners joining in with the Millions for Prisoners March that is happening right now in Washington, D.C. And there has been some word that prisoners are planning on joining the resistance, and PAPS will support them by whatever means they choose. If, like last year, that includes work stoppages or hunger strikes, we're okay with that. But Florida has decided that they don't want any of it. And we've seen this tactic before. Specifically, let me tell you very quickly the story of Rashid Johnson. So Rashid is originally from Virginia, but on interstate compacts, he was moved to Oregon and then to Texas, which is where I met him. I've been writing to him for 2 years. And last year, during the September 9th mobilization, the unit that he was in Texas, Clement's unit, decided to preemptively go on lockdown on Labor Day. And as you know, lockdowns never happen on a holiday, right? They always
right.
scheduled.
And let me just clarify. Excuse me. Let me just clarify real quickly. When you say preemptively, you mean that there was no incident, there was nothing happened, no fight, no violence, or anything like that. They did it as a preemptive move,
to the
as a preemptive
possibility of the strike. Correct, sir.
Okay.
So the idea was that they claimed that it was regularly scheduled.
Okay.
But it happened at Clements Unit in Texas. It happened over a month before the regularly scheduled lockdown should have occurred, and it started on a holiday. And Rashid really blew the whistle on that in the San Francisco Gazette. Quick shout out to them. They've been an absolute wonderful publication for prisoner struggles. And, he started facing some heavy retaliation for that. And he had, 4 active lawsuits, and they started taking away his legal materials, claiming that those lawsuits were not active. And then there was this funny moment where I was on the phone with his warden, and then a day and a half later, Rashid was shipped off to Florida. Okay. So he is now one of the 97,000 prisoners who are on lockdown in Florida. We're still trying to get him and his legal materials in the same place. But it is interesting that you have a statewide lockdown. And we have heard rumors that Florida may not be the only state that has gone on full lockdown. So I have not been able to confirm rumors about South Carolina or Michigan. So that's interesting. But basically what we're seeing is that prison officials are aware of the fact that prisoners know about Black August, that they're aware that today, August 19th, is the Millions for Prisoners March on Washington, D.C. for human rights and to amend the 13th Amendment to abolish slavery once and for all. And that basically they want to make sure that no acts of resistance, whether they be nonviolent or that they're just not interested in having that occur. And I'll tell you, in Texas, these preemptive lockdowns last year were successful. By the time that Clements Unit came off lockdown, there was sort of this idea of, the September 9th uprisings are over, and we're tired of being on lockdown anyway. We're not going to do anything. So I hope that this doesn't break the spirit of Florida, that instead the prisoners realize, oh my goodness, 97,000 people just went on lockdown over very vague threats, right? They were basically saying, there's a concern that a few prisoners may decide to become violent, so we've decided that we're putting the entire state on lockdown.
Right. I got you. No, absolutely. And that's unfortunately that's the DOC in the United States at its best or at its worst. It's also my understanding that PAPS have joined a coalition of other organizations to do a school supply drive for students. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. So our Millions for Prisoners rally happened last Saturday, right, the same day of the Charlottesville shooting, unfortunately. And, obviously a quick shout out to Heather Heyer and her family. May she rest in power. But we decided to do a little bit of a twist. So we did a rally, and like I said, there was a large coalition of people who came on board. Inmate Lives Matter San Antonio, the Democratic Socialists of America of Austin joined us. A lot of organizations, too many to name. But specifically, Counterbalance APX is one that I want to make sure to mention, because they, and Fatima Man specifically, said, look, let's not just have a rally where we stand in front of the building and say pretty things. Let's do something constructive to help break the chains of prison, and specifically to go after the school-to-prison pipeline. And that's when Counterbalance APX launched the first annual school supply drive for children on the East Side who basically are at risk of becoming incarcerated. So our rally included the ask that people bring school supplies to the rally. And in addition, many businesses in Austin came on board to be school supply drop-off centers so that people who couldn't make the rally could still volunteer in this very tangible thing. And I think, the rally was successful in that endeavor. I mean, we had a huge box, and just from the rally itself, it was completely full of
Yeah.
And then they're putting the backpacks together pretty much right now, which is why our event had to happen earlier than everybody else's.
Absolutely.
And they gathered a lot of money as well. So we'll know for sure probably by Monday how many backpacks were put together for the kids, but it's looking like it was a really successful school supply drive event. And real quick, one other thing that we did that was a little different from the other events and demonstrations around the country is we had pre-addressed and pre-stamped postcards to various prisoners that were basically featured in the rally, right? So Greg Curry, for example, out of Ohio, we had a recording of him and he spoke, and, you know, various prisoners. Jeremy Hammond's mom came out to the rally, so we had flyers and postcards for him. Rashid Johnson, Keith Washington, Malik Washington, I mean. We had postcards for them, and it was probably over 100 postcards that we had pre-addressed to various prisoners.
Oh, really? That's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
By the time that we went to pack up and go home, every single postcard that we had prepped was taken, along with a lot of the flyers.
And that's a big deal. That can make people's day. That can make people's month. That can make people's year. It's a huge deal in a beautiful gesture. No question about it. And for our listeners who like to support the school supply drive, how do they get involved with that?
Sure. My suggestion would be to go to Counterbalance ATX's website, and we can make that URL available. And there is information there and on their Facebook page for how to do it.
And I'll be sure to make sure those that information is attached as well. So real quickly before, unfortunately, 20 minutes go by so fast, but I want to make sure I ask you a couple more questions. What do you, from your perspective, what do you need? What do PAPS need to realize its mission, to make its vision come true? What do you guys need?
So obviously the coalition is coming around to amend the 13th Amendment, right? And I think that that's a good legal goal. But I come at this from the perspective that what keeps prisons going is the idea that if you and I have a problem, right, if something's happened between us, if we have beef, the only way for that to be resolved is for one of the two of us to go away. Whether that means that I have to die or I have to go to prison or I have to go over there somewhere where the bad people go. And we're really based in this idea of restorative justice and transformative justice and the idea that when something bad happens to you, that is an opportunity for you to transform that conflict.
Other than properly placed attorney calls may be monitored and recorded.
Please continue.
That's an opportunity to transform the conflict and to recognize that the community is involved in that conflict, right? If I come up and I deck you out of nowhere, that's probably because I was raised in an environment where that kind of violence makes sense, and because I wasn't taught about nonviolent conflict resolution.
You were trained, you were molded, you were sculpted to respond that way. But what would you say that PAPS needs specifically to realize your mission? I mean, is it people? Do you need contacts? Do you need resources? What would you say that you guys need specifically to reach your goal?
More letter writers would be at the very top of our list. More people on the outside that are interested in writing to pen pals. More prisoners who want pen pals. But really more letter writers on the outside. We're in the process of incorporating as a 501c3. Once we do that, then we'll be able to start accepting donations, but we haven't really rolled out that part of it yet. And also just more people to support prisoners in ways other than writing a letter, right? Being willing to do legal research or being willing to call in for urgent calls to action, right? Because we do those periodically for the various prisoners that we work with. And we want people to understand, like, you can write a postcard once and just be aware of the fact that that's okay. Just let the person that you're writing to know, hi, I'm just calling to give you a quick shout out. Or if you're interested in becoming a pen pal for the next 5 years, great, fantastic. We need you too.
Okay. And because I'm definitely, I'm not to ask that question because I think especially with a mission like PAPS.
You have 1 minute left.
I want you guys to be successful. Unfortunately, just said 1 minute. I had a couple questions that I wanted to ask you about mass incarceration, your perspective. So I didn't get a chance to ask you, which means that we have to have a part 2. So I would love to invite you back and go over a couple more questions with you. But it was a pleasure, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to talk to me this morning.
Thank you so much. And I'm so excited about recording a part 2. That makes me really happy. Don't tell me that, or I might go really slow, and then we'll have to have a part 3.
Absolutely. You have a beautiful day. Thank you again for taking the time. And we will be in contact with you. We set up another time and have another great discussion.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me out. And people check out iHeartPaps.com or .org.
You're welcome. This is Dante signing off with the Incarcerate U.S. podcast.
Thank you for using
the place where all of our voices come together.
Goodbye.